We begin in France, where President Emmanuel Macron says nothing is off the table when it comes to stopping Vladimir Putin. At a conference with Ukraine's allies from around Europe, Macron even spoke about the possibility of deploying ground troops to make sure Russia does not win the war. The French leader also pledged increased military support, including medium and long-range missiles.
A show of unity from over 20 European leaders. Host Emmanuel Macron said it was time to step up support for Ukraine, for its own sake and for the good of all its allies on the continent.
We are convinced that Russia's defeat is essential for security and stability in Europe. What's at stake right now is, on the one hand, the war in Ukraine, meaning Ukraine's ability to endure any new Russian offensive or threats in the coming months, but also the ability of Europeans to define their own collective security.
Macron even said sending in ground forces wasn't out of the question, a point that other leaders called the most heated discussion of the day.
There is no consensus right now about sending in ground troops in an official, endorsed and sanctioned manner. But in reality, nothing should be ruled out. We will do whatever it takes to ensure that Russia cannot win this war.
Nous ferons tout ce qu'il faut pour que la Russie ne puisse pas gagner cette guerre.
Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh B'Shem Yashai, B'Shem Rakal Kodash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, with the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the march to World War III that the world is currently on. And before we talk about the video we just watched and read this article, let's go and read this. This is Daniel's 12:10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So it's very plain to see what is going on in the world right now if you're paying attention. But to be paying attention, you have to be mentally present. And with the way that this world is ran right now by the wicked, that being the Edomites, which is the biblical name for the Caucasian race, there's been studies coming out that show that there's a large number of the population that doesn't even have internal monologue, meaning that through the years of brainwashing and programming, that people have lost the ability to think for themselves, to think internally, to meditate upon ideas and situations. Right? This is your average world citizen, okay? So when it tells you here that the wise shall understand, that's what that means. It means those people who have managed to pay attention and who the Lord has selected to get this information, they're going to understand what's going on. But again, on the other hand, the wicked are not going to understand. This is why for some of us who understand this truth, we could go to our friends, our family members, and we could explain so much to them to a point where they'll get it, they'll understand, they'll know what you're talking about, but they just won't understand the importance of it. It'll just go right over their head. They'll be like, oh, okay, word, and that's it. It'll go right past their head. Because why? Well, it's because of this. It tells you here in Ecclesiasticus 22:8, he that telleth a tale to a fool speaketh to one in a slumber. When he hath told his tale, he will say, what is the matter? You see, the wicked of the world, those who are basically blinded by the God of this world, that being the Edomites, they don't understand what's going on, right? They're lost in their sins, okay? And they're basically asleep, slumbering, okay? This is why the Bible says, now is time to wake up out of sleep. You see, a lot of people aren't going to get this, right? Because again, what are they going to say? What is the matter, right? They won't understand in the long picture, in the big picture, I should say, what is actually going on. Now, that being said, and in that video we just seen President Macron, who is the president of France, France being one of the heads of the beast described in Revelations, right? The beast being NATO, the whore that rideth upon the beast is America. Okay, so he came out and said that they can't let Ukraine lose. Okay, they got to do everything they can to make sure that Russia does not win. Okay, and like it tells you here, let's go and read this article. It says Russian intelligence says France preparing to deploy 2,000 troops to Ukraine. So all these people here, all these French troops are more likely already getting ready to be deployed. Okay, they're already saying goodbye to their families. Because why? Because when you look at the videos that are coming out, and you can see this on X, you can see basically the Ukrainian soldiers, the Polish mercenaries, the foreign mercenaries that are going to Ukraine to try to help them. They're all being slaughtered by the Russian military. Right? They're getting picked off little by little. And basically, why is that? Well, if you've been paying attention, Ukraine has basically eaten through its military age men, and the average fighting age of the people in Ukraine right now is around 45. Right? They basically have lost their youth over there. Right? The whole young generation has been wiped out because you had this small ass country come up against this big behemoth, right? The Russians. Now it's gone to the point where you have these other heads of these other nations that are part of the beast, right, coming out to say that they got to stand up and fight. And ultimately, where's all this going to lead to? Well, it's going to lead to an escalation where more nations are going to come in. Right now, other nations like Germany and America are saying they don't want to have anything to do with sending troops there. But remember, you had Biden out there saying that they wouldn't send certain weapons, and lo and behold, now there's Abrams tanks, and England has sent their Challenger tanks, which are getting stuck in the mud. You see, these devils, you can't trust them further than you could toss them. So again, it doesn't matter what they say. The Bible tells you that all these devils are going to be drawn down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Ultimately, they're down into Israel. So what you're seeing here with them gathering their troops to send them over to Ukraine, that's only a short trip down south to Israel. Okay, and especially once Amalek starts attacking the West Bank there in Israel and starts genociding those Ishmaelites, you're going to see a lot more movement of these troops basically forsaking Ukraine and heading down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. The article reads, it says, in a report carried by the Russian state news agency TASS on Tuesday, March 19th, Sergei Naryshkin, director of the Russian Foreign Intelligence, says that he has data according to which France is already preparing a military contingent to send to Ukraine. Naryshkin said that the information Russia has received indicates that France is preparing an initial force of 2,000 troops for the operation, that such a large military unit cannot be transferred and stationed in Ukraine unnoticed. It will thus become a legitimate priority target for attacks by the Russian army forces. This means that it will suffer the fate of all the French who have ever come to the Russian world with a sword. Naryshkin comments were quickly picked up by Russian mainstream and social media. So it tells you here, look at this, right? This is, it says, Naryshkin said that the French is preparing 2,000 troops to be sent to the Ukraine. The director of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Naryshkin, has said that the Russian has information that France is already preparing a military contingent to be sent to Ukraine. So you see that? So these devils, man, they're ramping up their war. Because why? Well, because you see, they are on the path to bring forward their new world order, their agenda, right? To basically conquer the world and rule it forever. But what's going on? Well, Russia isn't just standing by idly, right? You already heard that guy said that the French that come to Russia with swords are going to end up dying. And what else did Russia say? Well, it says Russia's nuclear weapons are now in Belarus. So you see that? It says the move sends a clear political message, but some experts downplay its military significance, which is bullshit, because when you look at where Belarus is right here, so again, Russia's right here, Belarus is right here, and Ukraine is right here. So moving the nuclear weapons, because they basically were moved over here, I believe, in the west of Belarus, okay? So what this means is they're not targeting Ukraine. Who they're targeting is the EU, okay? Poland and Germany, and now who was it? Sweden, I believe, is also just recently joined, and you have all these other countries that are now going to be targets, be it from Italy, England. All these countries are now caught in the crosshairs, right? They're getting drawn closer and closer into this war. So it says, this article says, Russia has moved tactical nuclear weapons from its own borders into the neighboring Belarus, several hundred miles closer to NATO territory. Western officials confirmed foreign policy as Russian President Vladimir Putin threatened a wider military showdown with the alliance over its continued support for Ukraine. The move, which Putin first announced in June or last year, is likely aimed at ramping up pressure on NATO's eastern flank. Right? And that's what I was telling you about, right? This is NATO's eastern flank. It says it follows years of nuclear saber rattling intended to scare the West into paring back its support for Ukraine, now in its third year of war against Russia's invasion, though top NATO officials insist that the move doesn't drastically change the nature of Russia's military threat to NATO, which is total bullshit. They're basically just playing it down because they're trying to not scare people, make it not seem like it's such a big deal. Okay, it's kind of like when somebody stands up to the school bully, right? And everybody's like, ooh, right? And then the bully, what does the bully do to play it off? They laugh it off like it's nothing. Okay, so this is Joel 3:2. I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land. Now, like I said a little while ago, right? All these wars and all this buildup and all this saber rattling, like the article said, it's all simply just to get us to this point here, where all these nations are going to be drawn down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay, so don't get it twisted, right? These devils, though they're going to have wars here and there, the ultimate big the big showdown is going to be there right at I guess you say the east of Israel, right down that valley of Jehoshaphat, which is I guess you'd say right where the West Bank is at, basically the east portion of Israel, right, where Ishmael is basically living within that land known as the West Bank, right? So again, you can see all this is coming together. And why is the Lord doing all this, man? Why is the Lord causing so much strife in this world? Well, because again, he's going to do all this because he's going to basically pay these devils back for what they did to us Negro, Latino, Native Americans, the Israelites, throughout history, the maiming, the killing, the enslavement, right? The unjust treatment of our people by all these heathens, man. See, they're about to get their comeuppance, right? The Lord is about to pay them back for what they did to us, right? Throughout all history.
Vladimir Putin has warned NATO countries they risk nuclear war if they send troops to Ukraine. The Russian leader has been delivering his annual State of the Nation address 2 weeks ahead of a presidential election that he is expected to win. Little to no opposition stands in his way. Putin told Russians in his speech that he would be stationing more soldiers in Russia's west, close to new NATO members Finland and Sweden. Now, Putin's nuclear warning comes after France's president refused to rule out the possibility of Western nations sending troops to Ukraine. This was later rejected by the US and Germany. Here's some of what Putin said.
They should eventually understand that we also have weapons, and they know it. I just said it now myself, weapons that can hit targets on their territory. Everything that the West is coming up with now, what they threaten the world with, it can result in a conflict with the use of nuclear weapons, and therefore the destruction of civilization.
So there you have it, right? So Russia, they're not standing idly by, right? They're basically threatening NATO that this is gonna eventually go into nuclear annihilation, which it is. The Bible tells you that America, along with the NATO powers, will be blown up with nuclear missiles. Okay, this is where the lake of fire comes from, right? When John was in the chariots looking down on earth, right? He's seen America in flames of fire, right? So much so that it looked like a lake of fire. And that's ultimately what's coming to America and the Western powers. And not only that, but you recently had this. It says, Xi Jinping says China ready to stand guard over world order on Moscow visits. It says, Xi Jinping said China was ready with Russia to stand guard over the world order based on international law, as he arrived for a state visit to Moscow that comes days after Vladimir Putin was made the subject of an arrest warrant with International Criminal Court. Now this took place a while ago. Yeah, so it's over a year ago. So, but the point being is that it's very clear that it isn't Russia by itself, right? You also have China, and what is that? That's prophecy playing out, right? It tells you that you're gonna have pretty much the BRICS nations, which is the alliances between Russia, China, Iran, and all these other countries. They're all going to come up against Babylon the Great and the Beast, right? Basically America and NATO. And that's ultimately going to lead to the destruction of and the downfall of the Edomite Empire. Again, the Edomites are the so-called Caucasian race. And yes, people say that Russia are a bunch of Edomites, and that's true. But you got to remember that a lot of the Russians are Japhets, okay? And that the main Russians that we see are the ones of Caucasian descent. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to go into captivity once everything goes down, okay? Remember, not all Edomites are going to be destroyed and done away with. There's still going to be a lot left in these other nations that aren't going to really be touched or aren't going to lose World War III. But those Edomites ultimately are going to go into captivity. This is Obadiah 1:7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that have ate thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So you see, the confederacy of Esau are all these other nations. China, Russia at one point, right? They all were working together to bring forward this new world order, this agenda that Esau, set up, so that way they could ultimately take over the world. But what's happening now that they're close to accomplishing their agenda? Well, these other nations have a different mind of how things should be run. Okay, and that's causing a lot of infighting between these elites. Okay, so like I've always used the analogy, right? It's the bank robbers that robbed the bank that have come back to their hideout, and now they start to kill each other off or fight between themselves, right? Just like in that movie Reservoir Dogs, right? Now they're turning on each other, and that's ultimately what we're seeing with Russia and China, you know, and all these other nations joining forces against the NATO powers. This is Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And that's where we're ultimately here, right? We're coming to the time that John the Revelator was shown, right? He had seen all the things going on in history, World War I, World War II, and he ultimately seen World War III come up right away, right? Come up real quick. And these are the times that we're currently living in, right? All these things are gonna escalate quick. Just watch, right? These devils, trust me, they're not going to be posturing for too long. They're gonna actually, use those weapons that they've all set up. And this is Micah 2 and 3. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh Bashim Shai, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks. Neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. And this family that the Lord has devised this trap against is that of the nation of Edom, right? The so-called white people. Okay, because why? Well, because you see, their time is over. And the Lord has set their bounds, which they cannot pass, as it tells us in Job. Okay, the Edomite Empire, which is the last empire upon the face of the world to rule before the second coming of the Messiah, is at its end. And why is that? Well, because we are soon to see the second coming of the Messiah. Okay, God is almost here, people, right? Get ready to meet thy maker, right? And again, with the signs coming in April from the solar eclipse, the devil's comet, the blood moons, and Passover all being in, for the most part, in the same period, like a same time, or should I say the same close to each other. It's no coincidence that all this is happening right now, right? This is a sign from God that he's about to show up. So that being said, Akim, we got to keep watching. We got to make sure that we stay on point and just keep doing the work, right? Because we're almost out of here. So hopefully this video was edifying, Akim. Till next time, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh Bashem El Shai, Bashem Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.